Welcome to the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast, where we explore the spirituality of the Christian child through the method of the catechesis of the Good Shepherd. I am your host, Carrie Mecki Lozano, with my dear friend Anna Hurdle as my co-host. Today we have Sister Mary Rose Bingham returning as a guest on the podcast, and she explores with us the role of the adult for the Level 2 and Level 3 atria. How to prepare yourself to be an adult in this space, the qualities that are different to serve a second plane child versus a first plane child, as well as the role of the assistant in the Level 2 and Level 3 atria. Sister Mary Rose Bingham became a Dominican Sister of St. Cecilia in Nashville, Tennessee in 1980. She has had the opportunity to serve as a teacher and a principal in several different states. She has a master's in educational administration, as well as a master's in elementary education with Montessori Primary and a master's in theology. She is a CGS Level 1 and Level 2 formation leader, and she is working towards becoming a Level 3 formation leader. She delights in being with children in all levels of the atria, while also traveling around to give formation for adults, both nationally and internationally. After our conversation today with Sister Mary Rose Bingham, stick around because Anna Hurdle and I answer one of your listener questions. I hope you enjoy.
Welcome, everyone, to the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast. Today we have Sister Mary Rose joining us to talk about the adult. Some of you may recall that Sister Mary Rose joined us earlier in the year when we discussed prayer in the Level 2 Atrium. So we're so delighted to have you back with us.
I am delighted to be here again and pondering and discussing all things CGS and the child. So thanks.
And today we're adding the adult to that equation.
Yes.
Because that is our primary focus today is if we think of that triangle of the three vertices of a triangle, that adult that makes up part of the dynamic environment of the child. So we're going to talk about the child, and this is hopefully going to be something that our listeners will find helpful as we prepare to be with children again in the fall.
Right. It's such an interesting, one of my favorite things about Montessori is this concept that it's not that we have to form the child, we have to form the adult. We have to become the new adult, right? And right. So it takes a lot of that internal observation for us to grow in understanding of first who we are at this moment, and then grow into the new adult that the child is asking for us to become.
Yes.
So this is an interesting conversation. I'm excited to discuss it with both of you.
Beautiful. And again, Sophie, I'm going to refer to that again, the History of the Kingdom of God, Part 2, that she states that working with the child requires extremely demanding preparation. I was like, oh.
Yes.
And Dr. Montessori, in one sense, you read some of her writings about the role of the adult and the preparation of the adult, and it's like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if I would have wanted her observing me. She was
very exposed.
Yeah, but I thought, wow, it's because the role of the adult is so important that I think she puts so much emphasis. Yes, it's the child. Yes, it's God as the teacher. But also we know that prepared environment of which the adult is a part of. And so we just say that, yes, it's a hidden life of Nazareth that our work is. Often you can see unseen or it seems like hidden. But the time we spend preparing ourselves, it's so essential to bear fruit in the atrium and for the children. And so there's this kind of paradox of this sense of humility that it's really the Lord who's the teacher, and the Holy Spirit working. But then again, our role is so important as that matchmaker and that guide for the child. So we hold these in a balance of humility, but also the dignity of the role of the adult in the atrium. But we also find out that Dr. Montessori herself said that the prepared adult is a scientist and a saint.
Yes.
And I think those really, when I first heard them, I thought, oh, that's nice. That's a great phrase. But I think pondering it, or in the experience of the atrium, or going through formation courses myself and now giving them, that phrase, those two little words, they're really, really powerful. And I think, again, give us this beautiful insight into what does the prepared adult look like? What are we supposed to be doing? And I think that word scientist, that there are certain skills or things that we need to know how to do, that there are facts that we need to know about, but also the saint. It talks about that beautiful disposition of grace and courtesy in ourselves, the life of virtue, the life of prayer. So it's both, and it's not either or. And so I think that word "and" is really important, because we need a balance of preparing both aspects, both sides of that scientist and saint that Dr. Montessori spoke of.
The saint aspect of that, what we're being called to as adults, it always calls me out as a level of humility, but not, yes, the unworthy servant, like that type of humility, but also humility in my pride, especially when I think about the second plane child, because they look so different than the first plane child. You know, they're so social, they're so interactive, they have so many questions, their moral development is so different than the first plane child. So if you were very comfortable in the level 1 atrium, I think it's easy for your pride to get hit more in this level 2 or level 3 atrium, because it doesn't look the same. And so your expectations have to change. So being called to be a saint in the level 2 and the level 3 atrium requires of me to humble myself before who the child is now, like understanding their characteristics now and their needs now, but also to be aware of the things that are triggering me and have that self-exploration, humbling myself, calling myself to sainthood within those moments of being triggered by these level 2 and level 3 children, because they're very different and they require a different adult.
Yeah. And I think, that sense of self-knowledge, and not in the sense of I'm always turned in on myself, but I think, as you're saying, like, to be aware of really the passions and the emotions within myself, of, as you said, what triggers that to arise, and why am I disturbed? Why am I angry? Why is my pride hurt with it? So I think that's part of that interior transformation that's ongoing, and the conversion that's ongoing, that we're called to just as Christians. But I think also in the atrium, if we want to be authentic, if we want to be true, and usually it's going to point to some unmet need or some maybe hurt in the past that I've had, that, that's touching upon that again. Someone just pressed into that wound. So I think, to look at ourselves and always be working on virtue, but also, as you said, the level 2 child is different. And suddenly the apron strings, if I didn't cut them, the child cut them. And they are more interested in their peers, we know, than with the adult. And so sometimes we can be, like, what am I? I'm killing myself, working myself to the bone, trying to prepare this atrium or give presentations. And they kind of will just say, oh, okay, and they go on to their work.
Thanks.
And so you're right. Like, I can get a little miffed, or if I need to be needed, then that's going to appear, and I'm going to have that little movement within me, or maybe especially for new catechists, but it can arise any time that anger is arising within me. Oh, where's this coming from? Is it because I don't feel confident, or the child challenged me, or I didn't feel like I gave that presentation well? Whatever it may be. Or we know that also they're in this age of rudeness with it, and about fairness, so that there can be kind of a little pushback or a little challenge to the adult, that I can take it personally, where, again, that knowledge of who this level 2 child is, we have to constantly go back to it and grind ourselves into it, so that we can say, oh, this is normal, okay? It doesn't mean I let them get away with being rude, but I don't have to take it so personally with it. So with it, but I think, perhaps it really challenges me to be able to see this child in all their dignity, and that they have this great potential. And I'm always, each atrium, going to offer a fresh start, which is really, really hard to do because we have memory. But to allow that child to come in and not categorize them or lock them into place, that I'm going to allow for them to have a fresh start and a new beginning each atrium. Or even midway through an atrium, if they just threw a fit, or wouldn't follow some established grace and courtesy that we all agreed upon, and we had a little chit chat and they got defensive, that to 10-15 minutes later, to approach the child and to offer that new beginning, I think, is what we're called to in the atrium. And those are the things that are really, really calling us to be our best self as the adult.
Yeah, true sainthood right there.
Yes.
So when we look at that role of the adult, specifically for the level 2 and the level 3 atrium, what are some, you already spoken to a few, but what would be some other things that you would classify as the role of the adult that's unique to the second plane child?
So obviously we're preparing the environment and we facilitate it. So we not only prepare the environment, but we're helping facilitate. And with the level 2 child, to really allow that independence. So that independence in their response to the presentations, as far as their chosen work during that free work time. That, yes, I want children engaged in prayer work, but their response may be unique or may be looking different than what I thought would be a prayer response. Okay, so we have some extensions that are pretty normal or set in this work. But the child in level 2 and level 3, but in level 2, may come up with some other responses or other extensions that I haven't thought of. And I think for the adult in that environment and facilitating that, to allow freedom, that when we say that freedom of choice, to allow that. So I'm not requiring you to do this, that, and this, that exact way, but I'm going to facilitate your idea. And I think part of that is to encourage, to inspire, but not to do step by step for the child.
Right.
Does that make sense?
We can use our words more with the older children than we can with the 3 to 6 year olds.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
As per conversation and that sort of discussion.
Mm-hmm. Because we know sometimes there's that tempering of they need to be involved in big work and they want big work, but sometimes with that, that imagination and that creativity for the level 2 child, they can come up with these fantastical ideas. And so to facilitate, what does that look like? To how to make it manageable or temper it, or what's really possible with the work can be part of a conversation with the children, of helping them to finally come, or when they're working in a group, and how to manage that group with, we're going to do a work together or do a presentation together. And sometimes we know, especially in the beginning, that they need some assistance in how do we work together graciously. So I think that's sometimes also facilitating that much more, because they have a desire to work in pairs, in small groups, much more so than the level 1 child. Then with that comes the also maybe more opportunities for a little conflict or disagreements on how the work should be done, or how we work together, or who's going to do what in this work.
And that is part of our work as well.
Yes.
And the adults' work as well, is to be able to help children learn to facilitate and navigate those times.
Right, because I think sometimes we assume that they know what to do in those situations, and we get frustrated because they don't. And they need us as the adult to, isolate the difficulty and show them how to handle different social situations. Yeah, what is the rule? What do I do when this happens?
Yes.
So to not assume that they already know.
Yes. So, Sister, am I right in thinking that you currently serve as a catechist for all 3 levels, for all 3 atria?
That's correct.
Not at the same time, obviously. No. But you currently serve all 3 levels. So I am curious, how do you prepare yourself to enter into the space of a level 2 atrium or a level 3 atrium? How does that change from, say, your preparation for being the level 1 before you enter into that space on any particular session?
So obviously, I think my own personal prayer life, and I find that I have a great hunger for my own personal study on the topics that I find in level 2 and level 3. Like, I am hungry to myself dive deep so that I have something to give, to offer to the children. And I find maybe, there's 1% of what I'm reading and studying and praying about that might come out in a presentation, but it's formed me as a catechist. For me, both my just meditation, contemplation, but also study really, really nourishes and is, for me, a great prep before I even step in the atrium. But also, I'm reading over the album pages and then going back to some of the key essential text. I find myself wanting to just enter into those. So that's always, even before I've entered the atrium, to begin to do that. And I also find with level 2, level 3, even level 1, is to revisit the characteristics of those children, is just a reminder for you of who is this child I'm presenting to. So you might even have from a formation course or some research you've done of some of those key characteristics, and maybe keep it on a clipboard or in a binder, wherever you keep like your album pages or somewhere in the atrium, that they're readily available, that you can go back to them with it. But I think those are probably the remote preparation that I do myself. And then there's the physical aspect of, are the supplies there? Is everything that is needed in those presentations there? Are the repairs made? Which is very similar to level 1. And then also, are there enough essential materials that are on hand that the children can use for their creative prayer work or creative art extensions that they can choose, because we don't go around and have everything on a tray for them. That is part of the environment, whether it's books that they're going to look at or certain paper, a minimal amount, not a whole art store, but to make sure that those are supplied. So those are probably the main things that I'm going to do. But I find that what I want to do is be so familiar with those scriptures, the presentations, the prayers, that I'm going to be pondering with the children, that I'm not like stumbling over myself, that I know them by heart, I guess I could say, not just in my mind, I know bullet points, but I know them by heart, so that because I think that's part of with this level too, I want to really be inspiring the child, kind of attracting them to these mysteries, but also to, inspiring that that they can then go off and ponder in themselves or give a response themselves. And I think that has to really come alive for the level 2 and level 3 child of themselves. And then the other role in the atrium is that to kind of protect that work time of the child, the work cycle, that I'm not, or the assistant or other children wouldn't be interrupting a child who's doing their prayer work. That I think, to be able to be kind of that protector of the children during that work cycle time.
Yes. Another thing that I'm struck by listening to you talk, and also in my own experience as well, for us who've been in the work for a while, we have been, not only have we been in the atrium with the children, which is informative and formational for us, we've also continued to read, to study, to attend more courses, take the courses over, read all of the new books and so forth. And so we just keep adding and adding and adding to our base. But it seems like the more we know, the less we say.
Well, that's the goal, hopefully, right?
Isn't that a great irony?
Yes. Yeah. You know, and another thing I forgot to mention, which I think it's part of, we get this gift from Sophia and John, and I think maybe it's part of that, I would call the charism of Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. They had such what seemed to be a beautiful friendship. And so I think this work is grounded based in friendship. And that another preparation we do is by our friends in this work, and to reach out to other catechists, other formation leaders, and just, hey, can we have coffee and ponder this? Or I have a question about this presentation and maybe that goes back to also humility, that I'm never the end all and be all in this work. And so that I'm constantly reaching out to others. And even if it's a new catechist, sometimes talking with them, their freshness to the presentation will give us new insights. And I think it's a way to renew or refresh ourselves. So I always encourage people to reach out to people, to form friendships in this work where I can discuss, whether it's just a question or I just want to discuss a topic, that you have certain people you can go to, and also being open to others. But I think to have real friends that you can discuss this work with, whether it's your group that are working in a specific atria, at a parish, at a school, or maybe some people you've been in a formation course with, and reach out. So I think that's also really important and part of our ongoing formation as an adult. And I always say, if you're really brave, you could invite someone to come to your atrium and just say, give me an honest opinion about what you're seeing in my environment. Mm-hmm. Or to invite somebody to come observe you, and to be able to offer some insights into what they're seeing, because sometimes we're so caught up in, oh, this child needs this, or this child needs that, or, oh, I got to make that note with this, that we ourselves need that, I think, objective. But that takes, I think, somebody who's going to be a trusted friend, or you can invite a complete stranger and never have to talk to them again.
I think those are really powerful tips, though. Like, I mean, there's something to say about that. Sophia and Jana, they had their group of women that they worked with every Wednesday. And then afterwards, they shared a meal together to discuss what they saw. And I think that there's something really powerful, both in that friendship of catechists that they're talking, that you see in that, but also in that you have someone else, just like the three of us sitting here and chatting about something we're obviously very passionate about. You have someone else to share that passion with, but that can also help you grow. That can also help you become more of that scientist and saint that Montessori was calling us to. And I love your tip about inviting someone to come in and observe you as a catechist, because that type of thing, it helps you grow. So asking your formation leader or someone who's much more experienced in the work, or maybe even a Montessorian, to come in and just take notes while throughout the time and share their observation of being a third party that's completely removed, to come in and share, will definitely help you grow. I think that's a great tip to grow as a catechist.
Yeah, it takes humility.
A lot of humility. A lot of humility.
Yes. I keep going back to that as well. I think Gianna, one of her many gifts was to impress that upon us.
Right.
But also, like, you think, I want the best for the children. I want them to be able to draw close to God. And if it means that I myself need to look at something within myself, I'm willing to do that. I mean, it's part of, like, we talk about the Good Shepherd laying down his life for his sheep. This is a way that we lay down part of our life for the child, in the sense of, I'm willing to lay this habit I have, or this manner of doing something, that I would be willing to lay it down for the good of the children in my atrium. I think, wow, how powerful that would be.
Yeah.
If I could approach someone coming in and observing me, or watching me give a presentation and giving me, insight into it, that if I would accept it, that this is for the good of the child and for the glory of God, that it's worth it. It's worth it for a little bit of a sting, maybe.
Yeah.
To do that. But, the role of the adult, so much patience we need with the children. I was thinking about that as far as giving we talked before about silence and response time. But I think also, too, of being patient with the growth and the formation and the transformation of children. Like, we're always looking about, oh, look they did that so much better. Are they to the point where I want them to be? No, but they're here. They did this better, rather than, yelling out 5 times in an hour. They only did it once. Hooray!
Right.
And I think to celebrate those with it is part of the patience, but also my response to them, and also really observing the child and watching what's happening, like what's doing, rather than immediately jumping in because I'm impatient, to say, I'm going to pause. Let me observe what's happening here. Let me think, what could possibly, to really watch the child then, and to give them that moment, rather than me giving into my impatience of, you did this, I'm going to respond immediately. I think that would help diffuse a lot. And we wouldn't be like later at the end of Atrium going,
right.
I didn't that well, or I responded. And part of it is, I could be really incorrect in what I'm presuming. So I think, yeah, that patience with it, but also, yeah, I think the basic kindness, in the way I'm responding. I even had like a little 3-year-old that came over to me in the atrium, and we're mostly talking about a level 2 atrium, but a level 3, I mean, a level 1 3-year-old came up to me and said, "Excuse me, sister, I have to tell you something." But I think when you said something to that other child, like that was a little loud, and in the atrium, we need to use a soft whisper voice. Like, I wanted to poke the child in the eyes, but like that's your immediate, like, who are you to tell me? And I paused and I said, thank you for reminding me. You are a good friend to me. To those little pauses of, we're not responsible for our initial emotional response, but to give time, I think, for us to say, this is true. This is true.
Yeah. It makes me think about what Jana says in her book about that examination of conscience, right? Like, so we need to check our pride and anger before the children even enter the atrium so that it doesn't distort the way that we interact with them. That's one of my favorite Jana quotes. But what about the assistant, sister? Could you speak into the role of the assistant specifically in a level 2 and a level 3 atrium? Because an assistant's role looks different also than in level 1.
Yeah. And I think, first of all, a shout out to all the assistants in the atrium.
Amen.
Their role is so vital, so critical. And sometimes when they say, well, I'm just the assistant, and I'm like, you're the assistant. Okay, it's not just. So important. Obviously, I think one of the big things for an assistant is how to redirect children. That I think that's across the board of how to, again, inspire them to choose work, or how to be involved in prayer work. And it doesn't mean like, get to work, children. But to, again, that inspire them to do work, whether it's they're interrupting children and keeping them from doing work, or I just haven't settled into a work. How to do that graciously, where it's really an invitation and not, you're getting on my last nerve and you better get to work. It's more of, we have this opportunity for prayer work. Do you need me to help you? Would you like me to help you look around and find a work that might be good? So I think that sense of how to redirect work, because I think sometimes when they get off task, they're not engaged in something. I mean, there's these prayerful, fruitful pauses, but then there's also where I'm just wandering around and causing a little havoc, that those need to be addressed, because otherwise then they get off task. And that's where I think some of those disruptions and disruptive behavior comes. So that's one of the first things I would say, to also make sure that things are prepared, like there are materials that resupplying, but also I think the assistant in a level 2, level 3 could also help facilitate some of those groups when they start hearing, like, not arguing, but close to a discussion, a lively discussion about who's going to do work, to maybe even just their physical presence will help sometimes that those emotional conversations temper down a little bit, or how to facilitate some grace and courtesy, especially in group work, would be, I think, a new aspect for the level 2 assistant. Anna, do you have anything else?
I think everything that you're saying is key. I would also add that there's not an apparent hierarchy in the space of the adult who's in charge and the adult who is the helper, that there is dignity, that both adults are treated with the same dignity by the children and each other. And oftentimes the one who is serving as the catechist and the other who is serving as the assistant could possibly even both be trained catechists. It's just within a given session, one is more or less taking the role of each of those people. I think sometimes our assistants in the atrium can feel useless in a way that's different than the useless servant, in that, especially if they are not attuned to actually it's good that I'm maybe not needed at the level that I thought I would be, but that we do honor that dignity.
I think that call of the new adult applies even with the assistant. And so, like what you were just saying of that, it's very common that an assistant at any level can feel useless. And I think that stems in the fact that they don't know exactly what to do, especially in this unique environment where the typical way that most of us grew up, especially with like punitive punishments and those kind of things, that's not a part of our way in this space. And so if we do not help the adult understand this environment, if we do not help the assistant start growing in that way of a new adult, then it's easy to feel useless. So to just give them in little bite-sized pieces some advice on like how to interact with the children, how they can sit down and work themselves as the adult, or really empowering them in how to handle a social situation that might need some guidance, and teaching them the tools and how to interact within those social confines. So I think it's important for the formed catechist, and right now I'm speaking about someone who's the assistant is not a formed catechist. Maybe it's a parent or a grandparent or someone who's just willing to be that second adult in the atrium for safe environment reasons, right? But to really take the time to guide them. And on our website, especially if you're an organizational membership, we have great information for assistant training that maybe you could just print the handout and walk through some of those points with them, like just empowering an assistant so that they don't feel uncomfortable in this space and they know what their role in this space is. But also as the assistant to really embrace that this is a space of prayer for both the adult and the child. So as the assistant to come in with the mentality that you are there to receive, both from God and from the child, that alone can change the atmosphere of the atrium if you come in with that type of receptive, rather than I'm here to control the space, I'm here to pour, I'm here to receive.
Yeah, that's so true. And that meeting time before the children ever come into the atrium at the beginning of the year, of really, because they come in with such goodwill, and like you said, they just don't know. Many of them are new to this type of environment. They want to know. And so, yeah, absolutely. And I think giving them some of those key phrases on how we, would correct situations or behaviors, or how we state our expectations. If you give them ahead of time, yes, we're going to model it, but that's, like you said, empowering them to do it because they have such goodwill. And I also find that the assistants are such good observers.
Yes.
And sometimes, like when we would sit down afterwards or talking about different children, that the assistant is the one who notices all these little details or has these insights into the children that me and my busyness of trying to give presentations or whatever it may be, that they've really picked up on that. And so I wouldn't, we shouldn't belittle that role of being an observer in the atrium, and also setting that slow, calm, peaceful atmosphere that we do through our very being. And an assistant is so powerful for being able to do that in the atrium, So I think we can kind of make it sound like it's trite in that sense, but they're so powerful. And I think both the assistant and ourselves just need to keep a good sense of humor, to just enjoy the children and to encourage the assistant to just enjoy them, because they're really funny and delightful. And sometimes we're so focused on, oh, did I present these to the right children? And are they all engaged? And da-da-da-da-da. And do I have these materials? That we forget to just step back and enjoy the interactions we're having, or to watch them have interactions amongst themselves that they really are pretty delightful human beings, and to encourage your assistant to just enjoy being with them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very true.
Well, I think you're giving us all such wonderful inspiration and anticipation of our time back in the atrium.
Yes, very much so. Thank you so much, Sister. I really appreciate you sharing with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome so much. And we'll be praying for everyone who listens to the podcast. I offer that up on Thursdays, is my day to pray for all those who I have had the opportunity to work with or to form information courses. And so now the podcast family is part of that Thursday prayer. That
beautiful.
All my prayers, works, and joys and sufferings are for the wider CGS family. So God bless everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sister.
Thank you.
Okay, Anna, I have another listener question for us. This one says, what are some ways to help a 3-year-old who cries for his mom during the first sessions of the year? How do you discern whether to keep trying such tactics as diversion, keeping the child close to you, etc., or to have the child wait a few weeks or months before returning to the atrium because he simply isn't ready? I found this issue to be especially difficult when a crying child causes distress in other children nearby. Also, is it ever appropriate to have a parent present in the atrium with a child who is anxious about separating for any length of time?
That is a great question for a summer episode, as we are all starting to think about some of those really young children just turning 3, entering into our level 1 atria. And I'm sure this is something that comes up with the toddler atrium as well, right?
It does, but the toddler's a little different because sometimes the parents stay and we do this whole ambientamento thing. So that's kind of a different ball game altogether.
Okay.
But in level 1, I feel like I have probably 1 kid a year at least, sometimes 2, where we have these type of things happening that we need to look at. So
like all really good questions like this, I think we don't have one answer.
That's true.
The thing I would like to talk about here with that child is remembering that very young child. They're going through various phases of their separation anxiety and with object permanence and so forth. And even the child who has been fine might all of a sudden develop some sort of separation anxiety. Sometimes we don't know where it comes from.
Yeah. And it's okay.
It's okay.
It's not a character flaw. It's not anything about you.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's the first thing is acceptance is a big part of this.
Yes. And so I think it's oftentimes it's worth a conversation. If it happens like 2 times in a row, it's worth a conversation with the parent, not in the moment. What are we going to try? And so for some parents, if they just turn around and walk out, the child will cry for a minute and then stop.
Mm-hmm.
But if the parent stays, it's prolonging it and they will keep crying. But that's not always the case.
Right.
So if the child is going to if the child is going to a morning out or to a daycare or with a caregiver, grandparents, are we experiencing similar type behaviors? And if so, what seems to work?
Yeah.
I have no problem with a parent coming in if that is something that the parent thinks might be helpful.
I don't either, but that is not my first go-to tactic.
Same.
So my first is to bring, if I feel like a child is having some struggles being left, I schedule a time with the mom or the parent and the child at a separate time for just the two of them to come to the atrium for 30 minutes. And it's just me and the child, and the mom is instructed to sit in a chair and be a fly on the wall.
Okay.
Just be present. And my goal in this time is to build trust with the child, but with them, with me, and with this space. And so I will, show them how to roll a rug or get a small table to work on, and I'll show them a couple practical lives. And the mom is sitting right there. And so they get more comfortable with me. I'm at their eye level. I'm saying their name. It's all about trust. And so a lot of times, in my experience, that is all that's needed. And the next time that they come to be dropped off Wednesday afternoon at the atrium with me, the child now knows me and they know the space. And so most of the time they're fine then after that. But I also instruct the mom. I say, okay, take a picture of me, show it to him a couple times, be like, great, it's Wednesday. You get to go see Miss Carrie this afternoon.
That's a great idea.
So, you really, and you say, you don't need to over talk it, just really quick. Just say, yeah, you're going to the atrium to see Miss Carrie again this afternoon. I'm going to drop you off. I will miss you. And then I will come back and get you. Just stating, orienting them to what's going to happen, but in a very simple way. And if it causes emotion, you just restate it. I know I'm going to miss you too. It's going to be hard. I will pick you up when you're done. Mm-hmm. So, and then you bring them and you hug them and you say it again and pass them off. And a lot of times that's all that's needed. When those two things happen, I rarely have a kid that will cry the whole time. And if you do have that kid, you do ask the mom, okay, can you just stay in this other room? And if he continues to have problems, then we'll bring you back in just to sit in the chair again until he can, and that might take a couple weeks then. When those rare kids that those two first steps are not enough, it usually takes a mom sitting in the room for a good 3, 4, 5 weeks before they're ready to let go even more. That's my experience.
Another helpful strategy, utilize your older children in the atrium.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
years. One. Hi, my name is Alice. Can I show you something? And those oftentimes those older children naturally take over.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And would you like to see where we keep the Good Shepherd, or something like that, and so just having a child lead the way. I think it's important to again reassure the parent that this is normal and that we are not saying that they're not ready for the atrium.
Right. It is a rare occasion that I would ever say, you know what? I think they should probably wait 6 months. I don't think I've ever said that.
Right. So, if they were not of the developmental plane, or if they weren't ready developmentally, but if it's a child who is emotionally struggling, I think we help them work through that. Because we don't ever want to give that impression that,
right,
for whatever reason, that there is a readiness.
Right. I agree. And I think this goes along with the idea of we don't have to save them from this struggle. We do need to accompany them. We're not abandoning them in this emotional struggle.
Great point.
We also don't have to save them from this. You know, this can be a learning lesson for them that this is hard. And you can acknowledge that with them. It is hard. It is hard for when we are apart. You can do it. I will pick you up when we're done.
And they will use that muscle again.
Especially if it triggers anything inside of you as a mother, as a parent, of abandonment or hurt or that, whatever. It's if it triggers something inside of you, then yes, it's definitely going to be harder.
Yes.
Well, great. That's awesome. Thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast. In our show notes, I put some links for some podcast episodes that have to do with the second plane child that you might be interested in. as well as a few of our books from our store that is for the second plain child. I also have a link to how to become a CGS USA member. Within that link is also information about how to become an organizational member, which we referred to in our conversation today with Sister Mary Rose. An organizational membership is really to help support both children and adults and families grow closer to God through catechesis of the Good Shepherd. It's not a group membership of individual catechists, but more for an organization such as a parish, a regional group, a religious leaders group, a church, a school. Part of the organizational membership benefits is that you get blurbs that you can put in your church bulletin. You get prayer services that you can do with your catechist. You get information on how to put on an assistant training, which is very valuable, which is what we talked about in our conversation today, plus other benefits. So go check out that link for you to be able to learn more about what it means to be an organizational member. This podcast is sponsored by the United States Association of the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. If you would like to know more about the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, or if you would like to become a member, please go to cgsusa.org. Thank you all for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks. Go and fall more deeply in love with God.